Hi guys. Today in Digital Writers Workshop, we're going to be focusing on punctuation. Punctuation are those little marks that separate your sentences and your words from one another. Now, I think all of you are very familiar with punctuation. However, you very often make silly little mistakes when you are writing in your piece. So I'm going to talk about a tip that can help you with your punctuation so that you can make your piece look a little bit more professional, and also give you some basics about each punctuation mark to kind of help you out. So let's jump on in. So the goal of today's lesson is that we are going to be, excuse me. We are going to learn some basics about commas, periods, and quotation marks. So obviously this video is not going to talk about every single punctuation mark, just those three. These are important because they're going to help your piece be more refined and look more professional. If you are having trouble with your quotation marks, for example, or with your commas, it's going to look not as nice. So when you present this to, say, an audience, like if you're presenting to adults, they're going to look at your piece and say, that definitely was written by a kid. So we don't want that. We want them to think that this is a really professional work that, a professional writer wrote. Now I'm going to give you a tip. This is pretty much helpful for whatever piece you write. This is going to help you know where to put your punctuation. The tip is really simple. Read it aloud. Stop what you're doing, take your piece, go look in the mirror and read it aloud. This will make sense in just a moment. All right, so let's go over the basics. Again, you all know what periods are, you all know what commas are, and you all know what quotation marks are. However, I'm going to give you some tips to kind of help you know better when to use them. So a period, those are very common mistakes with you guys. A lot of you will skip periods. Your sentences will go on and on and on and on and on forever. And it's almost like you're running out of breath because you're not putting a period at the end of your sentences. So a period, the point of a period is it separates ideas into separate sentences. So each sentence is a new idea and a new period. Basically what you're going to do when you use a period, you're going to put a period, a space, and then a capitalized letter. A lot of you guys, this is a very, very common error. You'll put a period and then your next word, no space. That is incorrect. You need to put the space there. Now let's talk about commas. Commas are basically a brief pause in your sentence. So if you find that when you read it aloud, you're making a brief pause, you can put a comma there. Now, commas are important because of this. Let's look at these silly sentences. Let's eat grandma. Let's eat grandma. So commas save lives. You can see that when we put our comma between let's eat and grandma, that little pause makes a huge difference in the meaning of the sentence, doesn't it? Here's another silly sentence where commas make a really big difference. Let's read it without commas, without pauses. I like cooking my family and my pets. My gosh, that's horrible. Let's insert some commas to not be a psycho. I like cooking, comma, my family, comma, and my pets. So we can see there when we added the commas, it completely changed the meaning of the sentence. Those little pauses really matter. So please be aware of your commas. And the last is quotation marks. Again, you probably know these are when people are talking. But the tip that I'm giving you with quotation marks is usually before we use quotation marks, before someone is talking, we're going to put a little comma there, a period, or an exclamation mark, then a space, then our quotation mark and whatever the person is saying, the words that the person is saying, Then we're going to end it with a comma, a period, or sometimes even an exclamation mark. Then we'll put our quotation mark. So this tip is just how to use proper punctuation with your quotation marks. So please be very aware of how that works. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's take a look at a example of punctuation being used, and we are going to read it aloud and see how punctuation affects how we are reading. Okay, so this is an excerpt from Wonder. It says, Dad, and you can follow along as I'm reading. Dad was in such a hurry to follow her that he dropped the video camera, comma, which broke into a million pieces. So notice how I paused there. And here's our new idea because we have a period here. And then Mom got very upset and tried to get out of bed to see where they were going, but the farting nurse put her very big arms on Mom to keep her down in the bed. So see how I made a brief pause there where the comma was. And here's our next idea after the period. And see, there's that space there. Period, space, capitalize. They were practically fighting because Mom was hysterical and the farting nurse was yelling at her to stay calm. And then they both started screaming for the doctor. Period, space. But guess what? He had fainted right on the floor. So see how I'm stopping after each exclamation mark after each period. Those are affecting my reading, affecting my pauses. So when the farting nurse saw that he had fainted, she started pushing him with her foot to get him to wake up, yelling at him the whole time. And notice how we're about to quote something and there's a little mark there and a space. What kind of doctor are you? What kind of doctor are you? Get up, get up. And notice here we're ending our quotations with a exclamation mark and then a little space after our quotation mark and a capitalized letter. And then all of a sudden she let out the biggest comma, space, loudest comma, space, smelliest fart in the history of farts. So we'll end right there. Very funny sentence, but we're seeing how R.J. Palacio is using punctuation to help pace what she's writing. Our final step is let's see if we can help this writer to punctuate her work a little bit better. Sorry, this is the piece. All right. So she says, in My Brother Sam is Dead, comma, no space. On page 38, Tim states that you'd think that if there was a war going on in your own country, it would make your life different. Okay, so we're seeing there's some quotation marks and commas not being put in there. For a lot of people, this was true. The Revolutionary War only affected the people that were fighting. Okay, we're seeing no spaces there. So this has a real aspects. Okay, so basically, again, I'm using my tip. I'm reading this aloud. I'm reading this aloud to help me understand where my punctuation is going to go. Right off the bat, I can see that, let me go back to it. In My Brother Sam is Dead, comma, space. There needs to be a space after this punctuation mark. On page 38, Tim states that, here's where our quotation is going to start. So we'll say comma, space, and our quotation mark starts. You'd think that if there was a war going on in your country, comma, and there's two spaces here. So be careful if you make two spaces. We're going to delete, oh, there was three spaces. And this is unnecessarily capitalized. Let's make this a lowercase letter. It would make your life different. And notice how here this is the end of this person's idea. Because the next part she's talking about, for a lot of people, this was true. So this, because it's the beginning of a new idea, should be a period. We'll say period, exclamation mark. Then we start our new idea. Space, and then a capitalized letter. For a lot of people, this was true. Let's make sure there's a space here. The Revolutionary War only affected the people that were fighting, period, mostly, and this needs to be capitalized because this is the beginning of a new sentence, mostly. No space here. Let's add a space. So this has real aspects. All right. So basically, you could get a better sense of how to use punctuation correctly.